broken home button on the iPhone 4 can be really annoying because it's basically the only button on the phone. Fortunately, the home button can be replaced, and while there are a lot of tiny screws involved in the repair, it's actually not that hard, and it'll probably only take you about an hour. Hi, I'm MJ with iFixit, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the home button in an iPhone 4. The version that I'm working on is the GSM version, but the CDMA version is pretty similar. Either way, you're going to want to follow the step-by-step instructions and the repair guide on our site when you're doing your repair. With that all being said, I'm going to get my parts and tools together so I can get started. For this repair, I'm going to need one of our new 54-piece bit driver kits that's been updated to include the all-important pentalobe driver, as well as the rest of the bits I'm going to need during this repair, a plastic opening tool or a plastic spudger, a SIM eject tool, a pair of tweezers, which I got from our precision tweezers set, and of course, your replacement home button. This repair requires the removal of lots of tiny screws, so a screw tray is also highly recommended. Not only is it good for securely storing your screws, but for remembering which screw came from where when you're following the repair guide. Lastly, I have an anti-static wrist strap, and this is going to protect my device from any accidental electrostatic discharge during my repair. Before I get started, I'm going to verify that my phone is powered off. And when I'm sure that it's off, I can begin by removing the two pentalobe screws down near the dock connector. Once those screws are out, the rear panel slides up really easily and then lifts right off the phone. We get our first glimpse inside the phone, and our next step is to remove the battery. And that's only held in place by one screw and a cable, so I'll go ahead and take care of those. Now that that's done, the next step is to begin to pry the battery up with my iPod opening tool. You're going to start to pry gently along the sides, and then once it's mostly lifted up, you can use this plastic pull tab here to lift it out the rest of the way. Now that we've got this battery out of the way, the next big piece to remove is the speaker enclosure assembly. The first step to doing that is disconnecting this dock connector ribbon cable and the antenna cable down next to the speaker enclosure assembly. With this ribbon cable lifted up, you can see the two screws that are holding the speaker enclosure in place. Once those are removed, you can use your iPod opening tool to gently pry the speaker enclosure up and out of place. Now that we've got that speaker enclosure out of the way, the next big part to work on is the logic board. To get started with that, we're going to remove the SIM card and a whole bunch of screws. Now that we've got the logic board out, we can get started on the display assembly, which means we are almost done. But this is the point where we run into about 1 million tiny screws and washers, so you're going to be really grateful for this screw tray right about now. Now that all of those teeny tiny screws are out, you can begin to separate the display assembly from the bezel using your handy dandy plastic opening tool. As you're prying the tool apart, you'll notice that there's some adhesive keeping the two pieces together, so you might need to pry with a little more force than you would have expected. Okay, so with the display assembly raised off the bezel, we're going to start to separate the two, but not too hard because there are some cables we need to feed through the bezel. The last thing we're going to do is finally remove the home button. It's connected via a ribbon cable that locks into place, and you'll want to be very careful when lifting that latch up because it's pretty fragile. Next, I'm going to use my tweezers to gently guide that cable out of its socket. Again, you want to be careful because it's really fragile. I find it useful to anchor both of my hands on the work surface. That way I don't pull too hard. As soon as that cable is disconnected, you can begin to lift the home button up and off of the bezel. Now all I have to do is install my new home button and reassemble my phone. Of course, you can find all of the parts and tools for this and many other repairs at iFixit.com. And if you run into any problems during your repairs, there are lots of solutions in the iPhone 4 repair guide on our site. For all the latest teardowns and repair videos, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter at iFixit, or like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching and happy repairing.